Hello everybody and welcome back to more PogChamps. I am National Master Jesse Cohen, this is Summer School of Chess, and we are diving right into our next set of games between BenjyFishy and Daniel Negreanu. It's hard to pronounce that name. Don't judge me. For those who don't know, here's a picture of BenjyFishy. Here's a picture of Daniel Negreanu. Let's just jump right in. In his first game, Benjy is playing the white pieces, Daniel's playing black, and we have a King's Indian attack as white develops his knight, followed immediately by fianchettoing the bishop and castling kingside. For those who don't know, fianchettoing your bishop is not some sort of fancy super technique. It is simply, there are two long diagonals on a chessboard, and bishops operate on diagonals, obviously. And so putting your bishop on the long diagonal by pushing up your B or G pawn one square and activating like that is called fianchetto. So if you didn't know that, now you know more Italian. Again, it's not a better way to activate your bishop, it's simply a different way. The bishop goes on the outside, and when the knight moves, we'll aim towards the inside. Now both sides are just bringing out their minor pieces, fighting for the center. Everything is good. D4, yep, we've got to fight back towards the center. Takes, takes. Queen C7, C4, yep. E5. Attacking the knight, opening up that bishop. I love it. Knight B5. Attacking the queen and saving the knight. Queen D7. Now here's Daniel's first move that I'm just like not so sure about. And the thing is like, so we definitely should see that the knight is threatening this queen, and Daniel does. However, we've got to think about our other pieces too. When Daniel plays Queen D7, do you see how we are saving the queen, but we're also hurting ourselves, right? The bishop on C8. So, probably, I don't like going all the way back to the back row, but maybe queen back to D8. I know he's also afraid, like, he wants to save the queen, but he also probably sees that the knight and the queen are double attacking that pawn, and that the queen and the bishop are the only thing is saving it. So, I get what he's thinking. Queen D7, knight C3, kick that knight. He's absolutely right. You can't just let, your opponent keep their pieces in your territory. You got to kick them back. Bishop E7 developing, B3. Now, this is an interesting move by Benjy, but I'm not a huge fan of it. So he's going to play bishop B2 in just a moment and double fianchetto his bishop. But remember, we want to set up our pieces for where they're going to be happy in the long run. Here's what I mean. Let's just place a move for black and say that someday that this knight moves and opens up this bishop. Is this a happy bishop? You tell me. Is a bishop that happy when it's biting on a one-point pawn guarded by a one-point pawn? Does that really cause black any pressure? Is that really going to hurt black? No. And so, basically, unless Benjy has some idea combined with F4, attacking the one-point pawn with a one-point pawn, to actually break it open, or has some idea to go after D6, the base pawn, and destroy that, and then go after E5. Unless there's some sort of plan, this bishop is activating, but it's just going to be activating on a closed diagonal. Knight G4, interesting. Knight D5, yep, that's a great square for a knight. Also threatening Knight B6, forking those pieces. Knight F6, no! We're moving the same piece over and over again. For what? I understand you want to get rid of that knight, but no! We have a fork! We love forks. Remember, forks are when pawns or knights make double attacks. The knight threatens the queen and the rook. The queen's got to go somewhere. We win the rook. Instead, we trade the bishop, which, is my second favorite move. Because just despite how terrible that tall pawn is on E7, it is one of the main defenders of that weak D6 pawn. And so, it's not the worst thing that ever happened. Knight C2, let's get that knight off the edge of the board, okay. Knight E3, hey, he is relocating his knight into an outpost. That is the strongest kind of square in chess. B5, Knight D5, hitting in there. Queen takes, I like it. And then doubling up the rooks, okay? And so, something to kind of think about. I'm not saying that Daniel has the best alternative here, but as a general thing, I like to tell my students to take is a mistake. Usually, when you're the first person to take and your opponent takes back, you help them improve the location of one of their pieces by putting it in a better spot. That's not always the case, but it usually is the case. Notice how it helps black, or it helps white shuffle that rook behind and hit that really weak pawn. This is a great idea. Again, remember, masters don't typically go after the queen. We go after pawns, squares, kings, pin pieces. We like to go after things that don't move. Knight b4, there falls the pawn, take, take. Now the bishop's in trouble. Save the bishop, boom. And now we're up 2 pawns. Now here is where I'm a little bit confused. Here we just should keep things simple. We are down 2 pawns as black, and white has the bishop pair, which is considered an advantage in chess, especially on an open board where these bishops have such beautiful open diagonals in every direction. So if I'm playing black, I'm thinking of a couple of things. I'm thinking, okay, I need to, A, try to win my points back. That's not a good thing. B, I need to probably try and trade off one of those bishops. In this position, we can win back one of our pawns immediately by playing pawn takes, and rook takes. And we should. We should get our first pawn back. And then, depending on the situation, maybe play bishop e4 someday in the future and try to trade off for that bishop, and, you know, things won't go so bad. Instead, we make this little one-move attack on the bishop, but then they get to save their bishop attacking our knight. We save our knight attacking their rook, but then here, now we still could, again, we could take that pawn c4, but we don't. We should. Oh, wait, never mind. I'm so sorry. It doesn't work this time. It takes here and here because of our f6 move. Do you see why this move no longer works? No! It hurts. It hurts. This is why we do tactics. And if it wasn't for that f6 one-move attack, it wouldn't have occurred. Instead, Daniel ended up sacrificing a knight and then basically going into an endgame, down a bishop and a pawn. And at this level, that's enough to win. Remember, in the endgame, it's pretty much all about who can make pass pawns into queens first. That's what 99% I would say of endgames are about. And so white goes up here, starts winning more pawns, and starts pushing those pawns, and lo and behold, there comes a queen, and the mate follows. Pretty, I guess, this might seem silly. Yes, why would white hang the queen? But white is up so many points, even if takes and takes and takes, there's still a rook that's we're just gonna make more queens. It doesn't really matter. On to game 2. Bloop. Let me just make sure. They played 3 games, that's right. In this rematch, Daniel's playing white, Benjy is playing black. Let's take a look-see here. e4, e6, d4, d5. We have a French defense. In the French defense, black lets white set up a 2-pawn center. That is typically a very strong thing. If you can set up a 2-pawn center and keep it, you should. But black sets up this kind of counterattack on the e4 pawn. Knight c3 develops the knight and defends that pawn. Takes, and takes is the exchange variation. Knight d7. I'm surprised that Benjy is playing this. This is like the Karpov variation, I think. The idea of knight d7 is that black wants to play knight f6, bringing out the knight and attacking this knight. But if white plays knight takes knight, black has 2 options that aren't that great. Pawn takes, which black doesn't like too much if they want to castle kingside, because now their pawn shield's going to be broken. Or queen takes, bringing out the queen early. And after knight f3, that bishop's going to come with tempo pretty soon. So black plays this move knight d7 in order to recapture with the knight. Knight f3, knight f6, bishop d3, takes, takes, knight f6. See, now there's none of those issues. And bishop g5. Clever way. Instead of moving the bishop to safety, we develop a piece and pin it to the queen. I love it. Bishop e7 unpins it. Now that is a threat again. Trades off, says, I'm not losing any time, but you can have the bishop pair. Queen d3. If there's one thing that Daniel is doing very, very well, he is playing from at the angle of just bring out your pieces as fast as you can and don't waste any time at all. So Daniel is down the bishop pair, but Daniel has a superior center, and Daniel has more pieces out, and Benjy has to fix his bishop. g6, castle's kingside, castle's kingside. Knight e5. Not bad, not bad, not bad. You know, it's a hard situation to say. That knight definitely wants to go into e5. Remember, knights become stronger as they go up the chessboard. But I'm also thinking to myself, you know, usually when in doubt, what is my worst piece and how do I improve it? And so, you know, putting this rook on this open pathway, not such a bad idea. Or maybe rook on d1, maybe not such a bad idea. Knight e5 is not so bad either. Although it does allow a lot of trades, but I think they benefit us. Again, if they take here and like trade off a bunch of stuff, I think that this is just better for white because white has the better center, this bishop is still blocked in, and the bishop pair is gone. Like black gets rid of the only thing that they had, and yeah. So I like this, attacking the knight. No! This activated their queen and made 2 attackers on here. What should you do? I don't know, maybe f4. Support that knight even more. Support your homie. He is a good dude, and we want to keep him. c3, solid move, but there goes our knight. but more importantly, our pawn. And now we're down a pawn. F4. Now we better not be trading. Check. As a general thing, I don't like walking into pins. And that move is the killer. Props to Benjy. Take a second and look at this again if you don't see it. I want you to see why this move is a crusher, okay? This is the distraction. In chess, you've really got to pay attention to your opponent's long-range pieces every single time. They will swing across the board and kill you. In this position, the threat of pawn takes rook combined with the now discovery attack of bishop takes queen, there is no solution. White's got to move the queen and save the rook. Unfortunately, we didn't see that, and down goes the queen. And I don't know why we didn't take back, but, you know, we've all lost a queen, and it really does not last much longer after that, and neither does this game. I don't know how this all works, and I might be looking at this in the wrong order, because I would think after the 2 games like XQC lost that it would just be over. But for some reason, they played a 3rd game, so I'm guessing this is not the actual order. This final game that they played, no, this must not be the right order, because in this game, Daniel wins. So I'm not sure what the order was. It might have been, this might actually be the first game that happened. Either way, they went 1-1, and then Benjy won the tiebreaker. So in this game, Daniel's playing black, and here is Daniel's win. Both bringing out those knights and bishops, fighting for the center, just like they did in their previous game. Although this queen d7, I don't know. Daniel played this move in the last game when the queen was attacked by that knight on b5, and is now doing it again. I don't get the idea. Maybe he's trying to get this queen over here for some sort of quick kingside attack. I don't know. But again, you know, by doing that, he's blocking his own pieces. This is just not a very harmonious move, I would say. Knight takes knight. Pawn takes back, c4, bishop e7, knight c6, c5. I like this. Challenging that bishop. It's usually a good idea to trade off the fianchettoed bishop if your opponent castles with it, because then they're just left with a hole in front of it. Knight d5, take, take, g6. Actually, I really like the way that Daniel's playing. The queen on d7 doesn't seem to matter anymore because the bishop went to b7. And now, even though black is not castled, all the D and E files are closed because all the pawns are there, so there's no way to go get them. And so black's now going to develop this bishop on this beautiful diagonal, completely unopposed, and pinning the pawn to the rook, and then just castle. It's going to be that simple. Castles. So now we've got an interesting position, okay? From a deep level perspective, remember, the true purpose in chess is to get things that are different from your opponent, and then to use those differences. Jeremy Simon calls these imbalances. Some people call these advantages and disadvantages. You can just call them good things and bad things. What does black have in this position that is good and different than black, or than white? White has black has this, let's see here, this open B file. If this bishop moves and a rook goes there, that is something. White's got the half open C file. White's most advanced pawn is on the D. Black's most advanced pawn is on the C. I'll be honest, it's not a ton. It's not really a ton. But here's the thing. Black's half-open file leads to a pawn that is already being pinned by black's bishop, and therefore will increase even more pressure. And even if white unpins this, moves this rook, and plays pawn b3, I think that black can coordinate a plan that involves a4 and a5, or sorry, a5 and a4 to break apart that little pawn structure over there on the queen side, almost like a Banco Gambit sort of thing, and then start taking it all apart. Whereas white's half-open file leads to the c pawn, which isn't going anywhere. And so actually, I don't know, maybe if white can quickly play rook c1 and b4, it would change everything, because whereas, you know, this is just guarded by a pawn, so, you know, it doesn't do anything. Bishop h6 says, I'm going to trade off that fianchetto bishop. I don't know this move. This move does... I don't know. Bishop takes. King takes. Rook e1. Again, maybe there's a deep idea behind this. But if you're looking to help push your pawn was safe to move before. This is a closed file for your rook. I'm not sure. Maybe these are just kind of like... I think it's like we're kind of playing moves that just kind of are generally good, but... Okay. This mistake, in my opinion, And only because of White's next move. For those who don't know, if you're tuning into this stream by any chance, or you see this video because you're a big fan of Daniel or Benjy's, and you're not a huge chess player, you should definitely know the special rule of en passant. It is the most rare rule, I would say, in chess that happens, but a really important one. If a pawn moves 2 squares forward on its very first move, and that pawn is side by side touching a pawn of the other army, the pawn of the other army can capture that pawn as if it had only gone 1 square forward, like this. Shazao. And what this did was, look, White's queen and rook are doubled up against its own pawn, attacking its own pawn. That's not hurting Black at all. But by pawn takes pawn in here, suddenly all of this just gets way opened up for White. So the opening of these pathways benefited White. I don't think this was a good idea for Black. E4. Oh, man. Now that's an outpost, and that is a permanent weakness. Bishop c6, bishop h3. Oh, man. Skewer. Or pin, rather. The rook is pinned to the queen. Now Black is down in points. f3, g5. So, you know, it's not game over yet. It's only the exchange. Like, honestly, when it comes to being down in points, Daniel is down one of the smallest amounts that you possibly can be down, I would say. But Daniel has a lot to prove, okay? And so does Benjy. Benjy has an extra rook in this position and should be fighting hard to show how active and powerful rooks can be by trying to open the position. Benjy should probably be playing for moves like f4 and e5 to rip things open, but he's got to be really, really careful because the thing that Daniel has that Benjy doesn't have is this bishop. So Daniel should be trying to show how powerful this bishop can be. And when you play boom and boom, you open that diagonal up to that king. And so that could be a catch-22 there. I don't know. We might need to open up a different file, maybe with b4 and rook c1, maybe ideas like that. Let's see what happens. Queen c2, king f8, f4. It seems like he has the right idea, but again, this is a double-edged sword. You're trying to help the rooks, but you're also really risking your king and that bishop's, you know, being happy. Take, check. Here, I probably would have blocked for multiple reasons. Bring over another defender and say, hey, I'm up in points. Let's trade. Although, it's kind of tough, actually. If we play here, technically speaking, there's takes, walking into a pin, and then f5. That's kind of sad. King f2, queen g4. Oh no, our king. Queen d2. There goes one. Sack, check. Here. Okay, so this is a crazy moment. This is a super, super crazy moment. This could lead to a fairly boring situation, I think, where I think White can win, actually. I think Benjy can win here. It's hard. It's hard to see, but I think he can do it. I could be wrong, but I think he can. I think if he plays what he played in the game, queen d7 check, picking off that queen, unless Black wants to lose it, takes check, forking, or double attacking the king and the pawn, king g6, and now he doesn't want to lose his pawn, so he saves his pawn with tempo, attacking the rook and guarding here. And there's no way to guard this rook and stop this threat. So they can move this rook somewhere and then that falls. And this should be a win for White. I don't want to go through the deep analysis of the next 40 moves, so I'm going to kind of fast forward here until the next big thing happens. At this point, what they should really be doing is trying to see who can make a pawn into a queen. So like White's rushing this pawn over here on the queen side. And now Black's rushing this pawn. Takes there, trying to say like, hey, please take me, but takes back. And now it's like there's almost nothing left on the board. It's just, you know, a king and two pawns. In the hands of a master, this should be a, you know, definite draw. But again, the one thing that Black can do here, the one thing that Black can do that would win this game easily is to force a trade of rooks. If the rooks get traded off, then that extra pawn is definitely a win. No! He traded the rooks! No! Now he's got no defense, and the Black king comes in. And the promotion. Oh, now it's two pawns. And Daniel knows how to checkmate, I assume, especially with two queens, yeah. Okay, so, yeah. You know, well fought, you know, by Daniel. But I do think, in my opinion, you know, that in all three of these games, Benjy was better. Daniel found an awesome opportunity in one of these games, and, you know, way to go for him, especially as a chess player dominant, you know, poker dominant player. You know, so I think that, you know, once again, I think the stronger player did end up winning this, but again, you know, really, really cool chess. So again, I'm going to wrap this one up. I'm going to start, I have 2 more coming up for the 2 other matches, so I'll be right back. So hang tight, just a second. Be with you soon.